We only have enough for the family," Emily said, as she quickly moved the platter away from near me. At the same time, Owen started walking brusquely towards me. "Here, take this," he said, placing a cup in front of me. Due to his rough handling, some of the soup spilled over the table. "What?" I couldn't help but make a troubled face, which made Owen and Emily burst into laughter. "Did you really think you'd be eating the same thing as us? How cheeky can you get?" Their laughter made it increasingly hard for me to breathe, and it seemed I had reached my limit. It seems like I've reached my breaking point. I crouched down on the spot, gasping for air through my shoulders. Then, someone gently put their hand on my shoulder. "Let's go home." I hesitantly looked up, and it was undoubtedly Lucas. "She's not family? You said Isabella isn't part of the family?" Everyone froze at his voice, filled with an anger I had never heard before. "My name is Isabella Brown. I'm a 48-year-old housewife. I married Lucas 5 years ago, and since then, I've been living every day as a housewife. The reason is that Lucas runs his own successful company, providing us with more than enough financially. And it's not just for financial reasons that I stopped working. When I met Lucas, I was working as a private tutor that his daughter, Emily, attended. Despite attendance, Emily's grades weren't great. We aren't school teachers, just tutors. Students only spend a small amount of time, unlike at school. Because of this, it seemed like the other tutors didn't take their responsibilities very seriously. Getting too involved could lead to trouble. And there were plenty of parents who liked to complain, so my colleagues' attitudes were understandable. At that time, I didn't know anything about Emily's home situation and just thought she was a student who disliked studying. My students were generally high achievers, which made me worry even more about Emily. Feeling it was unfair to the parents paying high tuition fees without seeing results, I decided to call Lucas in for a meeting. During the meeting, I talked about Emily's progress and asked about her home life. That's when I first learned that Emily didn't have a mother. Perhaps her lack of interest in studying was related to her home situation. With this in mind, I frequently communicated with Lucas, trying to find ways to improve Emily's grades. Lucas must have noticed my dedication because he asked me out. The idea of dating a student's parents was something I had never considered. Although I respectfully declined his offer at that time, we continued to be good friends. Once Emily successfully got into high school and I was about to leave the tutoring, Lucas asked me out again. Moved by Lucas's passion and how long he had been thinking about me, I decided to accept his proposal. Having a teenage daughter was a significant hurdle, but eventually, I accepted his marriage proposal. I was over 40 but didn't accept out of desperation. I truly loved Lucas from the bottom of my heart. He was such a wonderful man that even the fact he had a child didn't bother me. He considered Emily's feelings and understood my emotions and confusion. I thought I would never meet such a wonderful person again in my life. When I accepted the marriage proposal, Lucas then revealed for the first time about his job. He also disclosed that he was the owner of a company. I was surprised by this fact, but considering he had a daughter, I understood why he hadn't disclosed anything until now. However, Lucas being the president of a company didn't change anything between us. But considering my feelings, Lucas suggested I quit my job. Having been single until this age, I did have a longing to be a housewife, so I gratefully accepted his offer. I also thought this decision would positively impact Emily, who had lived without a mother until then. Our relationship transitioned from student and tutor to a family. Although we might face various challenges, I believed we could manage them together. At the peak of happiness, I harbored such sweet thoughts. But things didn't go as smoothly as I hoped. For Emily, her former tutor becoming her mother was not something she could easily accept. If we had met when Emily was younger, the situation might have been different. If we had met when Emily was just a bit younger, maybe things would have been different. But we met during her sensitive middle school years. Kids from her school went to the same tutoring center, and it's possible some knew about Lucas and me getting married. I haven't heard anything about her being teased about our relationship, but it's true that her knowing about us isn't something she's thrilled about. Maybe that's why Emily never warmed up to me. Even when our relationship was that of a tutor and a student, we weren't close, but it was better than now. She never acknowledged me as her mother, and a heavy atmosphere lingered in our home. I'm sorry for leaving all the house stuff to you, Isabella. Are you forcing yourself with Emily? Lucas seemed to sense the tension and showed concern for me. Thank you. It's indeed a tough period, and there seem to be some misunderstandings, but it's okay. We'll build our relationship over time. I appreciated Lucas's concern, but I knew it was a hurdle I had to overcome myself. I should have known these challenges would arise since we started dating. Honestly, when I told my parents about dating Lucas, who already had a child, they were quite opposed. They worried that it wouldn't just be about Lucas and me, and if things didn't work out, it could hurt Emily even more. They also worried about how much pain it would cause me, to the point of tears. Eventually, my parents understood my sincere feelings, but the situation turned out as they had feared. I felt down every day and wanted to seek help, but I hesitated to show any weakness. It'll be okay. Convincing myself of this, I faced each day dealing with Emily. Emily, a high schooler, kept her distance even from her real father, Lucas. Naturally, she disliked communicating with me and clearly avoided me. Emily, can we talk for a moment? Maybe it wasn't good for me to be so concerned all the time. Thinking this, I decided to try talking with Emily more calmly and called out to her one day. Noticing my call, Emily stopped midway up the stairs. But when she turned around, her eyes were clearly filled with hostility. What? You're not my mother, so don't act like it. I was taken aback by her unexpected words and couldn't find the words to respond. Perhaps sensing my moment of confusion and shock, Emily smirked in a mocking way. You're just after Dad's money, aren't you? It's really disgusting. Don't talk to me so casually, okay? Saying that, Emily stomped up the stairs to the second floor. Did she really think I married Lucas for his money? Was Emily seriously thinking that? Until now, the thought hadn't even crossed my mind. Thinking about it, it might be natural for Emily to feel this way. But confronting me directly with those words is a different story. It's clearly a violation of the rules. Yet, consulting Lucas about this would undoubtedly shock him. I don't want to see Lucas sad. I forced myself to swallow the exchange I had with Emily earlier and decided to wait a bit longer. Since the day I heard Emily's hidden feelings, the wall between us has undoubtedly grown thicker. To be honest, Emily scares me. What will she say the next time I try to talk to her? With that thought, I found it increasingly difficult to even approach her. The more I cornered myself, the more I panicked. Every time I thought about fixing things with Emily, ironically, our relationship seemed to drift further apart. I'll talk to her tomorrow, definitely tomorrow. Such thoughts continued for days, months, and years. An irretrievable amount of time had passed. I knew I should have consulted Lucas earlier. Instead of pretending to be strong, I should have shared my true feelings. But the more I thought about it, the more confused my mind became. What if Lucas blames me for the situation with Emily? What if he dislikes me for being so pathetic? What if he labels me a failure as a mother and leaves me? Such worries have been constricting my heart, and I've been carrying them alone. Before I knew it, Emily had graduated from college and became a part-timer. However, I felt responsible for this outcome. If I had communicated more regularly, could Emily's future have been different? Maybe my various emotions negatively affected Emily, leading to this situation. Bound by such regrets and anxieties, I finally reached my limit one day. While preparing dinner as usual, I was suddenly struck by severe dizziness. Accompanied by a headache so intense I couldn't stand, I collapsed to the floor. Dishes on the table fell to the ground with a clatter, and the food spilled over me. Covered in the food I had made, I somehow managed to grab my cell phone. Feeling a threat to my life, I called an ambulance right there and ended up being hospitalized. The diagnosis was that my condition was due to stress and fatigue, and I was ordered to rest completely. When Lucas hurried over after being called from the hospital, cutting his work short, I couldn't help but cry. Anyway, it's good that your life isn't in danger. But you need to rest completely, so take your time to recover. And if you have any worries or troubles, I want you to talk to me. Lucas said to me, his voice gentle as I cried. I couldn't hold back anymore and confessed everything about my relationship with Emily. My internal conflicts, regrets, and my responsibilities as a mother. Lucas listened intently to my story, nodding sympathetically. After I finished, he hugged me on the bed and spoke. I'm really sorry for letting you bear all this alone. Emily's situation isn't your fault, Isabella, it's mine. Don't worry, just focus on getting some rest. During my rest, Lucas spent a long time talking with Emily. I understand it's tough dealing with a new mom, but there are things you just shouldn't say. After facing Emily, Lucas told me, if Emily doesn't change after this, there's nothing more we can do. It's not about giving up, but I have a plan, so don't worry. I believed in Lucas's words and tried to act as naturally as possible from then on. I don't feel like my relationship with Emily has dramatically improved, but I think she has stopped being as harsh to me as before. Time passed, and eventually, Emily got married. The groom is a man named Owen Martinez, who is 4 years older than Emily. Owen seems to work in the restaurant business and was the manager at the place where Emily worked part-time. Despite looking a bit flashy, he didn't seem like a bad person. After several meetings, the two successfully got married. Lucas and I were overjoyed and celebrated their new beginning. Naturally, Emily moved out to live with Owen. They're currently renting a small place but plan to build a house eventually. Owen must be earning well despite his youth. Despite such carefree thoughts, I couldn't help but wish happiness for the young couple. However, the situation began to turn sour when Emily came to us one day, saying, We're planning to build a house soon, but could you lend us a little money for the deposit? She explained that Owen had savings for their new home, but using most of it now felt risky. The home builder had asked for a higher down payment than expected, and they were stuck. The home builder apparently demanded a higher than expected deposit, leaving them with no choice. It would be troublesome if we have kids in the future and our savings are gone, right? Emily laid out what seemed like reasonable reasons to Lucas. Lucas couldn't refuse his daughter's request. I'll lend you the money this time, but live within your means. Owen is still young, there's no need to rush. I felt a bit anxious about Lucas's decision, but thought it wasn't my place to say anything. Emily, appearing satisfied with Lucas's response, exaggeratedly expressed her joy. After chatting pleasantly with Lucas for a while, she said she'd report back to Owen and left. Perhaps because I looked so anxious, Lucas then put his hand on my shoulder and said, Don't worry, I won't let this trouble you. I'll make judgments while keeping an eye on things. I could only silently nod in response to Lucas's words. Months later, Emily and Owen's new home was completed. The construction was quick, and as soon as Lucas agreed to help them financially, Owen immediately signed the contract for their new home. When the house was finished, Emily contacted Lucas to suggest a housewarming dinner. Lucas showed me several photos from Emily, saying happily, I never thought such a magnificent house could be built in such a short period. Isabella, you haven't really talked much with Owen, have you? Despite everything, maybe you and Emily can have a good chat during this opportunity. To be honest, I'm still scared of Emily. The feelings that sprouted that day towards my supposed daughter haven't faded. Yet, I couldn't dampen the joyous atmosphere. Yes, they look so happy in this photo together. I observed Lucas's happy expression and desperately hid my rising fear. It'll be okay. Having Owen as a partner must have changed Emily. Despite everything, we are a family. With Lucas by my side, there's nothing to worry about. I reassured myself and anxiously awaited the promised day. On the day of our meeting with Emily and her family. Shall we go soon? Prompted by Lucas, I snapped back to reality. As the day approached, I found myself unable to sleep well, so afraid of meeting Emily again. That's how much I'm scared of meeting Emily again. Lucas hadn't pointed it out, perhaps because I was careful not to let him notice. I put on a smile and tried to appear calm as much as possible. I did my makeup as usual, dressed as usual, and got into the car. As Lucas's car neared Emily's house, I felt like I was about to panic. It's okay. If it gets too much, we can just go home. Lucas murmured, still focused on driving. His words momentarily bewildered me. What? Moments later, I understood what Lucas meant. He had noticed my suffering. And that I had faced this day without running from that pain. That's why Lucas had left the decision to me without saying anything. If I had said I didn't want to go, we wouldn't have gone to the housewarming, and he wouldn't have been upset with me. Thank you. I don't know how much Lucas's words saved me, but I tried to keep my composure and responded as such. Suddenly, I felt embarrassed for being seen through by him for being scared of my own daughter. We didn't speak much on the way to Emily's house. As we entered the residential area, Lucas announced our arrival. Here we are. We got out of the car and rang the doorbell of Emily and Owen's new home. I'll be right there, just wait a moment. Emily responded to Lucas's call. My heartbeat sped up uncontrollably. Could Lucas hear it next to me? That's how nervous I was. Moments later, Emily peeked through the door she had unlocked. Welcome. We've been waiting for you. As Emily opened the door to greet us, Lucas gently placed his hand on my shoulder. He didn't say anything, but his intentions were clear to me. Encouraged by Lucas, I followed into the house. Owen was waiting behind Emily. As Lucas mentioned, I hadn't had much conversation with Owen. Please, come in. Even though I felt somewhat out of place, I followed Lucas through the house. It was a luxurious two-story home with a large yard. I hadn't asked for details, but Lucas must have arranged a significant amount for them. While Lucas and I walked through the house, laughing, I found myself just nodding along. Emily and Owen acted as if I wasn't there, not even making eye contact. Let's eat for now. Emily guided us to the kitchen, where dishes, likely ordered as takeout, were spread out on the table. Wow, this looks delicious. You didn't have to go through all this trouble, I said, sitting next to Lucas and looking over the lavish foods. Wait a minute, Emily exclaimed, noticing me eyeing the items on the table. There's only enough for family, she said, swiftly moving a platter away from near me. Simultaneously, Owen strode towards me. Here, this. Owen said that and placed a cup in front of me. Perhaps due to the rough way he put it down, some of the soup spilled onto the table. What? I blurted out, taken aback. At my confused look, Owen and Emily couldn't hold back their laughter. Did you really think you'd be eating the same thing as us? How shameless can you be, lady? Their laughter made my breath grow more labored. It seems like I've reached my limit. I crouched down on the spot, gasping for air. Then, someone gently placed their hand on my shoulder. Let's go home. I hesitantly looked up, and it was undoubtedly Lucas. Yeah. Lucas supported me as I slowly stood up. Not family? You said Isabella isn't part of the family? Emily, Owen, you both understand this isn't something that can be brushed off as a joke, right? Lucas's tone, drastically different from the one he whispered to me earlier, made my body tense up. This was the first time I heard such a cold voice from Lucas. After seating me, Lucas continued, glaring at Owen and Emily. Emily, I'm truly disappointed in you. I'm really sad. Ashamed. Just as you said, you're no longer family. Emily's mouth dropped open in disbelief at Lucas's words. Owen, I'm also very disappointed in you. Don't ever show your face to us again. And don't think I'm so naive as to lend money to strangers. The amount I lent for this house, transfer it to the specified account within a week. If there's any delay, I'll take it to the police. Owen didn't have a chance to interject before Lucas declared. At Lucas's words, Owen protested. Wait a minute. That's impossible. There's no way we can do that. Lucas immediately retorted. We've gone out of our way to lend that large sum to you, a stranger. Owen was frozen in place by Lucas's raised voice. Lucas is right. How can I trust someone who refers to me as a stranger? You didn't borrow money without a plan to repay it, did you? Hearing Lucas's words, my anger flared up as well. Isabella, I'm truly sorry. Let's leave now. Lucas was just as angry. Prompted by him, I left the house. Lucas's assertive demeanor left me so surprised that I couldn't speak for a while. Once the car started, Lucas sighed deeply and spoke. It was my mistake. I'm really sorry for putting you through this. Are you hungry? Let's start over and have something to eat, just the two of us. After apologizing several times, Lucas drove us to a nice restaurant he knew. I just nodded quietly, unable to speak. The restaurant we arrived at looked quite upscale. Perhaps sensing my complex feelings, Lucas quietly continued eating without making me feel uncomfortable. It was incredibly delicious, and I was surprised at how I could enjoy it after such a shock. Watching me eagerly eat, Lucas smiled contentedly. As I began to calm down, I could say this with confidence. Lucas, above all, would never betray me. When we got home, Lucas's cell phone had an overwhelming number of missed calls. All from Owen and Emily. Lucas called Owen to give him the account details for repaying the debt. My stance won't change. I have no intention of meddling with Emily, who has become a stranger, but someone with your immature mindset couldn't possibly run their own business. Abandon such foolish dreams and focus on repaying the debt. After saying that, Lucas ended the call. I've done everything I can for now. Still, I've caused you so much distress. I had thought Lucas didn't mean his earlier outburst. However, everything Lucas had expressed was heartfelt. His decision to cut ties with Emily and demand repayment from Owen for the house was firm. He had no intention of compromising on this decision. As his wife, I'm happy, but the idea of cutting ties with his own daughter prevents me from being completely overjoyed. Emily is an adult now. She made her choices, leading to these consequences. Maybe you can find some peace in that explanation. This decision is also for Emily's sake. Moved by Lucas's actions, I couldn't help but tear up. Lucas hugged my shoulder and smiled gently at me. The call to Owen must have added pressure, for Emily visited our house that very day. Emily, who always seemed so composed in front of me, now showed not a trace of that composure. Her expression was filled with panic and confusion. Dad! Please, let me explain. Although I let Emily into the house, Lucas refused to speak to her at all. His stubbornness was so pronounced that I almost intervened, suggesting we at least listen. Finally, unable to ignore Emily's tears, Lucas spoke up. Did you come here alone? Where's Owen? Seemingly reassured by Lucas's question, Emily managed to speak through her sobs. You said never to show my face again. Lucas sighed deeply before continuing. Do you understand how much your mother has suffered? Dad has been lenient until now. But today's actions are absolutely unforgivable. Emily, looking down silently, had tears streaming down her face. It's true, you and your mother may not be related by blood. But what has she done for you all this time? Has she ever treated you as anything less than her own? Has she not shown you love? Soon, tears were visible in Lucas's eyes as well. It's because your mother has been patient that this relationship has lasted. But it's over now. If I have to choose between you and Mom, I won't hesitate to choose her. I was startled by his words. Lucas loved me that deeply. What you decide to do with Owen from here on is your business. Dad has no intention of forgiving you. If you understand, then leave now. Lucas stood up, indicating the conversation was over. Emily desperately tried to stop him, but it was futile. Unsure of what more to say to Emily, I followed Lucas. For a while, Emily's sobbing could be heard from the room. However, Emily eventually seemed to resign herself with that staying here any longer is pointless, and quietly left the house, likely never to return. As a result, Emily had been deceived by Owen. Owen had targeted Lucas's wealth to fund his own store opening. It seems he started dating Emily casually, but once he learned her father was wealthy, he decided to marry her. After being disowned by Lucas and saddled with massive debt, Owen had no reason to stay with Emily. Angered by our confrontation, Owen vented his frustrations on Emily. Learning that Owen never truly loved her must have been a profound shock to Emily. Without waiting for Emily's response, Owen abruptly ended their marriage. Fearing Lucas might actually report him to the police, Owen frantically gathered money, incurring more debts in various places. Of course, he quickly sold the new house to pay off the debt. It's no longer our concern, but opening his own store became an impossible dream for Owen. Owen ruined himself by trying to exploit others. Ironically, Emily had been convinced I married Lucas for his wealth. I never had such intentions, but Emily clung to that belief. However, Emily herself ended up being deceived by a man after wealth. It's easy to say she lacked judgment, but this ironic outcome left me utterly astonished. Lucas seems to have no intention of forgiving Emily, who continued to insult me, coldly rejecting her repeated pleas for forgiveness. The biggest shock for Emily was probably that her biological father chose me, a stranger, over her. Despite any insults, she likely assumed he would ultimately choose his biological daughter. While this might seem like a natural assumption, Lucas did not do so. The betrayal by her biological father will cast a long shadow over Emily's life. Losing both her husband and home, Emily reluctantly started taking casual jobs. The loss of her family's support is something she will likely regret for the rest of her life. After Emily left, Lucas became even more appreciative of our time together. Although he didn't say it, the pain of cutting off his own daughter must have been significant. Yet, Lucas chose me, cutting off even that parent-child relationship. Despite all the hardships and pain we've faced, I'm truly glad to be with Lucas. My regret is that I should have opened up about my worries much earlier. If I had done so, perhaps a different future would have awaited us? I find myself thinking this way, but Lucas never blamed me for my past actions. I thought raising a stepchild would inevitably prioritize the child. It might be considered normal, but I was truly fortunate. While nurturing Emily, Lucas ultimately weighed me on the scales as an individual. Cherishing the preciousness of that decision, I am living happily.